Good evening and welcome to the September 12th, 2024 meeting of the Abington Township Board of Commissioners. May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioners Brodsky. Here. Rothman. DePlacido.
Here.
Laney Martin. Brown.
Here.
Weingrab.
Here.
Henry. DePone.
Here.
Young Gertz.
Here.
Spiegelman.
Here.
Paul.
Here.
Shriver.
Here.
Bowman.
Here.
Vice President Vahey.
Here.
President Hecker.
Here. Please note that Commissioners Henry and Rothman are slated to join us via Zoom this evening. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I do not have any announcements this evening, so we will move right into public comment on matters before the board this evening that are on the agenda, and we'll start with those in the room.
Good evening. Adele Cubell, Ambler Road. No explanation was given at the end of the meeting last month or in the minutes for this past month. There were citizens that were expecting to be able to speak about 1583 Rothley on Zoom. In the boardroom, I watched as participants' names were scrolled through. Numerous participants had their indicator pressed asking to speak. Instead of allowing these citizens to speak, a host removed them from the meeting or ignored them. Mr. Hecker said that one person was experiencing computer difficulty. All the other waiting participants were ignored or removed. The meeting ended with no explanation why were 5 to 8 Zoom speakers dropped from the meeting. I wanted to approach, however, no one is allowed to speak to the leadership. A citizen also requested documents for the meeting. This isn't listed. The documents were not provided in time for the meeting. This was also concerning the Rothley property. The Ward 5 commissioner had her microphone muted as she spoke. This made it impossible for Zoom participants who were at home to hear what was said. And no one asked for repetition of what the Ward 5 speaker had said. Not one commissioner asked why Zoom callers were ignored or removed. Can you answer why Zoom callers were removed or ignored at the meeting from last month?
I have no knowledge of anyone being removed from the meeting, Ms. Cubell.
I watched, and there were other
No.
people here who watched as well, and I saw that they weren't unmuted, they were removed, and then the meeting ended. There was a number of people there, and I checked with different people who tried to get through. They all seemed to think that maybe they had computer difficulty, but it was one person that experienced computer difficulty. And you have no knowledge. Well, I watched, and it did happen.
Okay.
Well, it's concerning because these people wanted to speak about the Rothley property, and they didn't have an opportunity. It's also concerning when a citizen requests documents in a timely manner and she doesn't get them in time for the meeting. And it's a concern when a commissioner has their microphone muted as they're speaking, and therefore the people at home cannot hear what's said. These are all concerning issues, don't you agree?
We can certainly correct the microphone issue. I was not aware of that either.
Nobody could hear. It
Wasn't raised at the meeting, but we'll make sure that that doesn't happen moving forward.
What about people at Zoom? People on
Okay.
Zoom expect to be able to comment
We
at the meeting.
will
and they
do
were ignored.
everything in our power to accommodate everyone that wishes to speak.
There was between 5 to
Okay,
7
you
or
made your
8.
point. Your time has expired. Please take your seat.
It's more than a point. It's a problematic thing
Please
that
take
goes
your
on
seat.
regularly
Your time has
here.
expired.
You're not addressing it.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to matters that are on the agenda this evening? Please come forward.
Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Joe Rooney. I live in Ardsley. Just a little prelude. Yesterday was 9/11, so it was 23 years since then. I didn't hear the very beginning, but for our police, first responders, I want to thank you guys, because that's the definite, and for Todd Beamer. What they demonstrated is a definition of what courage is. And it's a tragedy for everybody that died, but it also lets us be thankful for the unbelievable efforts that we get from these men and women every day. And they often don't get thanks. So I just wanted to bring that up because yesterday was 9/11. So thank you, officers, first responders who aren't here, but you all probably have family members that are members of that also. I'm sorry I missed the last meeting, and I looked through the minutes of the August meeting. In July, they talked about a $45,000 fine. But when I reviewed the minutes of this meeting, I didn't see anything in that finance report that had a check written for that, for the fine or whatever it was. And I was going to ask about that. Was that a mistake and not put on that, or is that still in work, or is there some update as far as that was concerned? So that was my first question.
Okay.
I got two other little ones. On that same, the finance report where they listed the checks, there was a $2,691 check for open records to Rudolph Clark. And I know we're paying a retainer for them on a yearly or a monthly basis. And I was just curious about that. Does that mean that if I write an open records request and I get a response that says we need more than 5 days to answer it, does that mean that Rudolph Clark then charges the township for that? And then there was another really small one. It was $296, and it says Cricket Avenue, Sheridan. I don't know if that's a name or if that's a project, but $296 when we're already paying that retainer. It's just, is that like just going to the till for something that nobody's going to ask for a couple $100? And I just thought I would ask that. And then for Jay Blumenthal, $18,506 in July. If I multiplied that by 12, is that what the township pays him, or is that a slow month, or is that a normal thing for the middle of the summer? Thank you.
We'll get you answers to those questions.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else in the room? And if not, we'll turn to Zoom.
Laura Lehman, you're unmuted.
Laura Lehman, Meadowbrook. I also would like to know why the people on Zoom were deleted, so I hope you'll get an answer for that and answer it in public, please. And the second thing is, I would like Commissioner Lainey Martin, who I do not see there. Is she not there today, or is she there?
She's not
Can
present.
I have an answer?
Yeah, she's currently not present.
Okay, well, I'm hoping she will also share what she did say, even the gist of it. Obviously, she could repeat the whole thing, but we couldn't hear it. It's not on the video. $1 on your $1 for all the personnel, and then there's for the Economic Development Corporation, for them to use unlimited amounts of professional time, including legal, including engineering, including, and you go in saying how incredible that is, that amount of stuff that you're offering, and then you said that a fair value for that is $1. Nothing could be a bigger lie. And the fact that you just said it, that that's a fair value for that, and somebody would actually believe that? We deserve a fair value for the use of our employees. We pay for every one of them, and we deserve to know exactly what's spent and exactly where it's going. They need to keep a time record for anything that is not direct township business, that is not directly going to the township's benefit. And this is going to the benefit of a corporation that is separate, so it doesn't even have to follow the rules, the bidding rules and so on, because it is so separate. And this needs to be fixed. The vacant property, where you are allowing Monco and a Monco Planning Commission person and a redevelopment authority, the people who should be deciding what happens with the property in Abington should be Abington people.
So I'll
We
just
have-
stop the clock for a second. That's exactly what's happening, Ms. Lehman. We are moving those members from voting to non-voting status.
Well, you're moving them to non-voting status, but they're still there influencing everything.
Oh, okay.
And that is problematic for me, because what's coming down from the county is nothing that anybody in all the counties want. We're not the only one fighting the kind of development. Steve Klein is the chair of the Planning Commission up there, and what we're getting from him up there is the same thing that we got when he rewrote our zoning. And we don't want that. Cedar Road is absolutely, completely should not be passed. It should not, absolutely. Somebody needs to look into what happened there. When somebody says something's corrupt, you shouldn't be appointing somebody to undo their words and say how uncorrupt they are. You should be having somebody say, Mr. Manfredi, you need to call a meeting right away, and several of us or all of us will be there to hear what's corrupt and we'll fix it. Instead, there was intimidation, not for the first time or the second time, from Mr. Sapone.
Ms. Lehman, please conclude your comments. Your time has expired.
I will tell you that it is defamation and it is intimidation, and you are on notice. That is neither Robert's Rules of Order on how you
Okay.
can.
Thank you for your comments.
Mike Tobin, you're unmuted.
Mike Tobin, Kirkwood, can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Tobin, we can hear you.
Okay. I was the one that had problems with the computer last month. Okay, real quick. I have two questions or concerns. One, the vacant property, I agree with getting rid of. I'm glad you're taking away the voting rights for the county people. And as Laura was saying, and I would like to chime in with that, I would like to see more Abington residents on that committee, and I would also like to see that committee get re-engaged. I know it's been dormant for quite some time, so hopefully that gets restarted, and I'm not sure who the commissioner is that's going to be spearheading that, but I would love to volunteer to be on that committee. Second thing, regarding the $1 for the MSC, for the EDC, I understand that doing the transfer cost of $1, and I'm okay with that from a startup position, but at some point in the very near future, the EDC needs to be able to stand on its own. And I understand it's taxpayer funded anyway, but at some point, the cost that they are generating needs to be justified by showing successes or showing some kind of work that they're completing. So I understand doing it early on, so they don't absorb any high costs, and I understand the $1 transfer, but that needs to be a real temporary thing till they get started. And at this point, although I'm not a big fan of the EDC, at this point, since it's been passed and everything, we need to get that thing moving and find out, is it going to be any good or not? Are they going to bring anything to the community or not? If they're going to do good things for the community, then great. If they're not, let's disband it and get done with it and move on to something else. But we need to make sure we are monitoring how much labor we are actually donating to the EDC, because at a certain point, they need to be able to stand on their own. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tobin. We actually agree with that, and that's why the agreement is structured the way it is, to give the manager the ability to control how much time and labor is being spent on this as we work on a plan to make the EDC sustainable over time. As I see there are no more hands up, we will now move to the consent agenda, and for that, I turn to Board Vice President Matt Vahey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for passage of the consent agenda listed as items A through D, and I so move.
Second?
It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda carries. We have no unfinished business this evening, so we will move into new business, and I once again turn this over to Board Vice President Matt Vahey.
Thank you, Mr. President. First item of new business is BOC-04091224. Motion to approve subdivision 21-03-365, Cedar Road Final Major Subdivision Land Development Plan and adopt resolution number 24-033, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any comments or questions for members of the board? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Next item of new business is BOC-050912224, motion to approve the management services agreement between the Abington Township Economic Development Corporation and Abington Township, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Is that your hand, Commissioner Weingarten, or are you pulling? Okay. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Next item is BOC-06-091224, motion to adopt Resolution 24-034, accepting the recommendation of the Management Committee regarding the formation of a municipal consortium to implement the WQIP, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments or questions from the board? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries.
Last item of new business is BOC-070912224, motion to authorize amending and advertising ordinance number 2098, the vacant property review board by amending section 49.3, providing that the executive director of the redevelopment authority and member of the Montgomery County Planning Commission serve as advisory ex officio members versus voting members, and I so move.
Second.
It has been moved. It's been moved and seconded. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
And that concludes new business, Mr. President.
Thank you, Vice President Vehy. We'll now turn to the Finance Committee and Finance Committee Chair, Commissioner Stuart Weingrad.
Thank you, President Hecker. First item, FC 01091224, motion to approve the July 2024 expenditures in the amount of $3,149,231.90, and salaries and wages in the amount of $2,496,403.46, and authorizing the proper officials to sign and approve invoices and supporting documentation in payment of bills and contracts as they mature through the month of October 2024, and I so move.
It's been moved and seconded. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioners Brodsky? Rothman?
Yeah.
DePlacido?
Yes.
Laney Martin? Brown?
Yes.
Weingrad?
Yes.
Henry?
Yes.
DePone? Yes. Young Gertz?
Yes.
Spiegelman?
Yes.
Bowl?
Yes.
Shriver?
Yes.
Bowman?
Yes.
Vice President Vehy?
Yes.
President Hecker?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you.
Next item, FC 02091224, motion to adopt resolution number 24-035, recognizing that the township's minimum municipal funding obligation for the calendar year 2025 with respect to the municipal non-uniformed employee, police, and non-uniformed employee defined contribution plans is $925,984 and $3,631,594 and $340,000 respectively. And I so move.
It has been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions from board members? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
That would conclude the finance agenda items for this evening.
Thank you, Commissioner Weingrad. We will now open it up for public comment on general matters of township business. Please come forward. You have 3 minutes.
Abington has been forced into decline. In the past year, the decline has increased rapidly. Bullet points. Abington Jefferson Hospital has disinvested in the township. The hospital owns declining and blighted properties. Neighborhood decline causes homeowners to move out and speculators to move in. Knowledgeable speculators have bought homes surrounding the hospital. These invited speculators anticipate a windfall. Speculators don't maintain their property. Abington Jefferson is undermining the neighborhood. Abington Jefferson political clout determines the directional path of much in Abington. How many high-rent, Keep citizens poor, apartments do billionaires want. These apartments are creating economic inequality. Greed creates poverty and hate. The township manager and 2 assistant managers were never hired to work for citizens. All 3 work behind locked doors, questions never answered. The receptionist window is plastered over. Transparency is long gone. The standard of township maintenance set by Mr. Manfredi and approved by commissioners is bottom of the barrel low. COVID was an excuse to short-staff the street department indefinitely. Now, Mr. Manfredi and commissioners expect citizens to clean gutters on dangerous streets. The center islands on Old York consist of crumbled cement and 4-foot weeds. These islands advertise Abington as a decayed township. The Reynolds train station bridge has 4-year-old trash and garbage piling up on Susquehanna. Does the township want homeowners to move? Emails to Mr. Manfredi get no action. Fred Beans moved in. When property changes hands, repairs are made. When will the Old York and Hart Corner cement be repaired? Pedestrians cross there regularly. $19 million in COVID funding. No new resources and lots of decline. Less maintenance staff has hit the township hard. Where do the millions go? Billionaires do not belong on the public dole. Citizens are promised resources that never materialize, such as the Roslyn Library improvement. Old York has vehicles regularly jumping curbs and crashing into light poles and buildings. Increasing numbers of people wait for buses without intervention. Pedestrians will be hit by curb-jumping vehicles. Another light pole was hit by Roman Delight. Waiting for a bus or walking on Old York Road are dangerous activities. Refusing to pay to repair light poles demonstrates no safety concern. Rudolph Clark does not hold years-long commercial code violators fully accountable. Open dumpsters, weed and trash-filled commercial properties, destroyed business sidewalks are now the hallmarks of Abington. Why are blighted property owners given opportunities to build apartments?
Please
here?
conclude your comments. Your time has expired.
Mr. Manfredi should not be recycling himself into any new position in Abington. He's been here 8 years, and the situation is horrible. Please go, Mr. Manfredi.
Please sit down. Is there anyone else in the room that wishes to speak? You don't have to raise your hand. You just can come forward.
Hey, good evening, Joe Rooney. I live in Ardsley still. And I want to thank Adele for all the work that she does. You may not like her presentation, but everything that she says is, as far as the blight and everything, is accurate. And it would be worth some of your time to walk around with her a little bit and just look at the stuff, because it's true. And I thank you for what you do. The second one, for Mr. McEnany, I know he's just here on the audio. I want to thank him. As I've walked around the township, there's a lot of little things that I find wrong, and on Christmas night, a telephone, or a power pole, I guess, was taken down on Maple Avenue. And half the pole was hanging above the sidewalk. Part of it was laying on the ground. And it took until August to finally get the Verizon, the power company, to fix that. And Mr. McEnany helped with that, and I appreciate that. He also helped. There was another pole was abandoned on Glenbrook and Meeting House. And I talked with him about it in July. I was on vacation in August at Yellowstone. I came back, and that was taken care of. I want to thank him for that. So those are 2 good jobs. And for Adele, it's Mr. Manfredi and his staff are doing it. So I appreciate that. And they are doing stuff, if people point it out. And they can't see everything, so that was wonderful. The second thing I wanted to ask about, again, it's for me reading the minutes from the last time. There was this talk. First, we talked about Rothley, and now there's going to be three places on one lot. And then St. Basil's got 150 row houses built from all our economically or our environmentally concerned residents and commissioners right here, and then Cedar Road. And I think Laura brought it up about spot zoning is bad. And then there was a discussion from, I believe, the solicitor at that meeting, and he said it was just a spot zoning, it's one thing. But if somebody owns a property in that neighborhood and they take a picture and they say, well, you did this already in our neighborhood, that's a pretty strong argument for saying that it's going to get approved again. So when arbitrarily spot zoning is just thrown willy-nilly in Ardsley or in Roslyn or over by McKinley Elementary, they're just theoretical examples. How are you making that decision, and then how are you going to justify to the next homeowner that he can't put 3 units on his property in Roslyn? If it's not written down and it's not approved by you guys for some policy, then it's just arbitrary and capricious. So we've got plenty of lawyers here. I own properties, and I understand. When I want to do something, I look around the neighborhood at what's there, and I take pictures of it. And then I just come in and say, well, you've already approved it at 740 Maple and on Hamel Avenue and on whatever. So if we've got this on Rothley, then how do we tell somebody else no when they want to do the exact same thing on another bad property? I think that's the gist of what people are asking with the spot zoning, and maybe we'll get an answer. And finally, you told me I'd get an answer on the questions I asked on the last. When will I get it? I thought maybe I would get it when the Finance Committee talked. So when will I get the answers for the questions I raised?
We'll work with the manager and the finance director to get
But
those answers.
not at at some point. I'm just asking.
Yeah,
Is
no.
it tonight or some point in the future?
Some point in the near future.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go to, please come forward.
Good evening, Fran Early, North Hills. And I'm here representing the North Hills Community Association, and we are having a scarecrow contest. And being the fact that my brain is full of straw, I'm going to read my flyer. Create family fun. Create a scarecrow, which we are going to display on the lamppost on Limekill Pike. This is to support the revitalization of the Limekill Pike, Mount Carmel Avenue district that we are trying to do, which we've been doing for years. And finally, in March, we received the grant, and finally, of August of this year, I actually got paperwork from HUD telling us that we now can proceed. But let me go with the scarecrow contest. Anyone in the township can register to participate in the Cole's Flower Shop, which is on the corner of Limekill and Cricket, between the hours of 9 to 3. Everything has to be in by October 11th. You drop your scarecrow off, you register, and we'll display them on the post. On October 19th, between 4 and 5 o'clock, we'll have everyone in the township, or anyone who wants to come, will vote on the best scarecrow. And then we will give out prizes, first, second, and third. The prizes consist of half the money that we receive for the registration will go to the prizes. The other half will go to pay for all the work to get this done. And then at 5 o'clock, we'll have an award ceremony at Solnig's Lawyer, which is the corner of Cricket and Limekill, right across the street from the firehouse. So there's the big crowd, everybody can just park at the firehouse. Well, there's not a fire. So I hope for the commissioners to spread that on your website and let everybody know, and I appreciate the time.
Do you have a flyer you could leave behind?
I got a bunch I'm going to
Okay, yeah,
for
leave
you.
some behind. We'll be
I will do that.
happy to. Thank you. We'll go to Zoom.
Laura Lehman, you're unmuted.
Laura Lehman, Meadowbrook. I just want to say to Mr. Tobin, I have appreciated all of the speaking up that he's doing. I think what Mr. Tobin doesn't realize is that if you change a light bulb at Albathorpe Park, there's a path into the budget where that light bulb was bought, and we can see it. There is no part of our budget that is supposed to be done without a line item. And the Economic Development Corporation and the inspection of the high schools should be no exception. We should know where that money is going. And I don't believe that it's even legal. I have not been able to do that deep dive yet because you keep me busy diving for other things. But I will be doing that deep dive. And I cannot believe that you're allowed to spend whatever amount of time and money that you want for the Economic Development Corporation without showing what you spent and what we're getting for it. And in addition to that, and the school waivers is the same thing. Upper Dublin, by the way, used to call Abington their sugar daddy. And I can explain that to anybody who wants to know. If there's an interested commissioner among you, I can explain how that happened. And that's along the same lines. And in the Vacant Property Review Board, it was very clear from the moment it was set up that it was actually intending not to clear the vacant property, but to make arrangements for speculators to be connected with the people who want to get rid of properties and who are taking care of them. And there were many vacant properties. There's one right behind Mr. Sanchez's office now that I don't even think is on the list. And they are not the code is not being enforced. So the Vacant Property Review Board actually ended up causing much of the blight. And that is a shame and a disaster, but it caused the blight so that they could introduce the property owners to the speculators, and they wanted to have all these other measures in place. They hoped to have the zoning with a quarter mile around a train station in place. And so that's what's held everything up. In the meantime, the township got severely worse because of what they were doing. And I do want to say that we have the budget coming up, Mr. Hecker, and you are notorious for changing the rules of the meeting and where the speaking is whenever you feel like it. And oftentimes we tell you that we can't speak when we don't know, so you say, okay, well, we'll change the rules and you can speak now after you hear the presentation. Well, some people might want to inform the presenter what it is they want to hear, or some people might want to speak in the beginning. And if you advertised it that way, so what we're trying to do, Mr. Hecker, is get you to put in rules that make sense for us, which is to give us a minute to say what it is we'd like to hear so the presenter can know, and then to give us a couple of minutes to comment after we hear it.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lehman. Your time has expired.
Ross Abel, you're unmuted.
Hi, Ross Abel, Washington Lane, and also Jenkintown Abington Neighbors Association. First, I wanted to commit to learn about and support Vision Zero, which is the pursuit of deaths on our streets through traffic calming and infrastructure for pedestrians, children, the disabled, and cyclists. According to PennDOT, from 2018 to 2022, there were 3 pedestrians killed on Old York Road, just in our area, and 46 injured by drivers. And then we've had additional pedestrians and bicyclists killed since then on our streets. I asked that the board and the township work with Montco and DVRPC to pursue a multi-municipal traffic calming study with our Jenkintown and Cheltenham neighbors to bring safety on the ground to our residents who want to enjoy their lives around this busy road. I talk to so many people day in and day out who their biggest critique living 611 is the danger for the kids. So I really want you guys to take that to heart. Second, I want to offer props to Commissioner Weingrad on the Abington-Jenkintown Connections Plan. It's so awesome to see these sidewalks and paths getting built. So thank you to him and our township and Public Works for making it happen. I would love now to see us make Washington Lane truly feel safer and more walkable by finding ways to slow it down with things like lower speed limits, stop signs, raised crossings. Separately on this topic, and last, I want to ask the board and our township management to put some brainstorming to how we can give residents a process to request traffic calming and safer streets infrastructure in their neighborhoods. For example, Jenkintown Borough, it allows residents to specifically request things like a speed table for their street. And I'd love to see our township get more proactive in helping residents make their streets safer in a way that doesn't just prioritize the throughput of cars over our families. Thank you.
Thank you. And to your point about Washington Lane, Commissioner Weingrad and I are actually working together with township staff to identify additional ways to bring calming to Washington Lane. We'll move on to the final speaker.
Mike Tobin, you're unmuted.
Yeah, hi, Tobin, Kirkwood Avenue. Just a quick question about, is the St. Basil's Toll Brothers, is all that been signed off and approved, and is it all ready to go at this point? Is all that in Toll Brothers' hands at this point? Is it, or is there still stuff the township has to do? If somebody could just get back to me, or if somebody knows it off the top of their head, I would appreciate an answer on that. Regarding the comp plan, I just an FYI that we still have not forgot about that. We met, about a year ago with the comp plan. Citizens had a whole bunch of questions, and it's never been revisited since then. And it's got to be coming up on over a year now since we met. So just an FYI that is still sitting out there. As Laura brought up, there was a whole lot on that needed to be resolved. The citizens weren't happy about the way it was laid out, and that needs to be focused on again. There were some good parts of it, but there were also some parts that were not citizen-friendly at all. Regarding the vacant property, I do agree with Laura that nothing has been done with that, and that does need to get restarted or whatever. And again, I would like to see more Abington citizens on that committee as opposed to county and state officials, stuff like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tobin. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are.
Before we adjourn, I just wanted to recognize Fran Early. He's a valued member of the North Hills community. He has put in some really hard work getting the North Hills Community Association off of the ground. So I wanted to thank him for his leadership in that manner, and looking forward to continue to working with him in the future. So thank you, Fran, for your hard work.
And he looks good in a scarecrow hat.
He does.
So, okay, with that, we'll adjourn, and we'll immediately move over to the working session.